Now that was deliberate, Sandra. People would be disappointed
Yeah.
if I didn't do that. So I've got everybody poised and waiting, but I have been rehearsing, everybody. You'll be pleased to know. So Sandra, count me in once again, and
Okay,
everybody be
I'm going to
prepared.
do it once again. Ready?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Google Plus for you and me. Thank you, Sandra. I mean, that took loads of work.
That was wonderful. It was
thank you.
fast, and it wasn't like a funeral march.
I'm getting better. Then that's cool. Oh.
Okay, everybody. I'm Sandra Watson, and this is Rockin' the Blocks with the ABCs of Google Plus. And today we have my co-host Sean Mon from across the pond in the UK.
Hey.
Okay, I put you up there, Sean. Go ahead and wave again.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm waving. I've got the invisible hand. There we are. Look, we're waving.
Okay, good. And then we have as our guest Paolo Fabrizio, and I hope I said that right, Paolo, because I forgot to ask you before show, who's across the long way, the waters and everything in Italy, in Milan, Italy. And in a moment, we're going to have him introduce himself. So you can wave your hand, Paolo.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
That's cool. Sorry, we've been laughing so much before the show about our topics today. We're talking about how well are you communicating on social media, in social media. You know, after I wrote the title, I got to thinking it could be on or it could be in. It depends on how you want to look at it. So there, I guess I'm going to get some comments from some people saying my English may not be correct.
I'd never say it should be.
Okay. The purpose of the show is that once you know the ABCs of Google Plus, what do you do with it then? How do you use it? How do you use this platform? How do you use this tool or these tools to promote your business? And that's what we're going to be talking about in communications, because communications is basically where it all starts. How to use it for branding, marketing, and otherwise. We want to thank everyone for coming. It's great to see everyone out there, even though I don't see you. That's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? Hey, it's great to see you. I don't see you.
But.
And unfortunately, this is one of those days when I'm probably going to be laughing a lot because we really were having a lot of fun with some words. You know, let me ask everybody today before we get into, actually no, I'm going to let Sean first. Please introduce yourself real quickly, and then we're going to go to Paolo because I want to ask a question.
Absolutely. Guys, great to see those of you that I've seen before. Those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Sean Mann. I'm from across the pond over in the UK, and my focus basically is leadership training and coaching and marketing training and coaching for businesses that are predominantly in the UK. So great to see everybody. Hi there.
Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about you just for a moment here, Paolo. I put down here, why did we ask Paolo to this show? Well, there are 4 reasons. We're talking about communications, and we're talking about how do we communicate in a very broad social media environment. We are definitely in a universe of mixed cultures and mixed languages. So, Paolo kind of fits the bill really well along with Sean. Sean coming from the UK, now Paolo coming from Milan, Italy. You speak 4 languages, English, Spanish, Italian, and German. Pretty impressive. Maybe not so to you, but to me, I have a hard time with the English sometimes. You are a social CRM, and I'll let you explain that when you talk about yourself. You're a speaker and you're a blogger. You do implementation of social customer care. That's pretty interesting. And then you specialize in online reputation. And I hate to tell you, this may ruin yours today. You may have to do some work afterwards by the time we get done here, Paolo. So I'm going to ask you right now to go ahead and explain yourself.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Paolo Fabrizio. I'm from Milan. I work as a consultant for social customer service and social customer care topics. So I help companies to adopt social networks as a tool to communicate and provide service to clients and prospects. I'm also a blogger. I blog about corporate blogs and social customer services mainly. I have my own blog in Italian, but I also do some English blogging using my LinkedIn profile. And I've always loved communicating. I like speaking languages because I also love traveling. I did lots of travels, and I like to learn languages and cultures so that when I visit a place, I can try to understand a bit more of the culture. So I'm very curious.
Thanks a lot, Paolo. That's a really great way to put it. And I'm sure everybody can see why we asked Paolo to come on to this conversation, because it's really going to add a lot to what we're talking about. Now, I did say I have a question, but I do want to thank everyone for coming. Tanya, we did notice your comment, learned versus learned. We are going to get into that, I promise you, because that's a biggie. But before that, I want to ask, how much is a pound of burro? Okay, Sean. I mean, how do you weigh a donkey?
Did you call me a donkey, Sandra?
Well,
this is the first cross-cultural insult I've had in seconds, I think. But no, actually, in all seriousness, we were Paolo. I think Paolo's best placed to address that. But we were talking about words that sound similar, or I mean, even within ourselves, Sandra, we've had occasions, as well as we know each other, haven't we, where we've used certain words, and you've looked at me as I've come from out of nowhere, and vice versa, and you've clearly seen some of the stuff that I've said and thought, what the hell, where is he coming from, and vice versa. And then Paolo was entertaining us with burro, wasn't he? So maybe we should ask Paolo that question.
Yeah. Well, it's fun that, when you do not know or just know a few foreign languages, you just use your capacity of listening and to try to listen to sounds. Or, the example we spoke about before this hangout was the English word woman. So woman means, of course, woman in English, but sounds in Italian like uomo, which is man. So it's a totally different meaning.
Could be a problem.
If I just try to listen to sounds, I may just make some mistakes. But although you can make even worse mistakes if you know some languages like Spanish, who have same words with Italian with different meanings. So what we were talking about was the word burro, which is B-U-R-R-O, and in Spanish means donkey, and in Italian means butter. So the fun thing is going to a Spanish shop, and may I have portion or a kilo of donkey? I need to cook. I want to cook potatoes. That's fun.
It could certainly be fun, couldn't it?
This one thing is that if you do not know languages, or if you just know languages but you don't know very well cultures, and if you try to do business, take care, because misunderstandings, sense of humors are totally different.
Yeah, and I know one of the things we were going to come on to, and it may come a little bit later, was when you look at international brands. So I know that I was reading about a car manufacturer who had this mid-sized car. It sold on economy. It was pretty well constructed. Everything was going for it, but it did not sell in a certain European country. And it was called the Nova. And in that particular country, Nova meant don't go. So they had this, even though everybody intellectually knew that you wouldn't call a car something that didn't go, emotionally it didn't resonate with them at all. It was basically conveying the idea that this beautiful car was no sooner start the ignition than it would just die a death. So I know that's a silly example, but you do have these campaigns where you think we're using a universal brand, and that's a car manufacturer with huge budget for research. So what about us when we're trying to project our personal brand across continents? What do you think about that, Paolo?
Yeah, well, it's fun because, as for big international brands, they use keywords for SEO. They use keywords for building websites, for positioning their websites in Google. But sometimes they do not care about the meanings of words. So if you just use silly words or nonsense words or bad words in this particular country, you just need to check and verify every country you're going to try to sell your products or services. So otherwise, it would be funny for somebody like us, but not successful for brands.
Or, if I can put it another way,
like German sense of humor.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, otherwise. But I think I'll leave it to Tanya to say it so well. I say tomato, you say tomato. I'm going to start singing in a minute. Tanya, that's wonderful. And also, sorry, you're going to kill me in a minute. I know this, but I'm getting excited about the comment tracker. So apparently, is this true, Alan? Are you a good cook? Francesca thinks you are.
Yeah, yes, I know Francesca. I work with Francesca. We were doing. She's got a great web marketing agency, but we're also friends, and so sometimes we have dinner together with friends, and I also cook once, and she's still alive.
And you only cooked once, and she's still alive. Yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah, I don't remember what I cooked. I cannot recall it. He's so nice.
You probably used some burro in it.
You did, yeah.
Some burro, some donkey in it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I tried to cook some donkey, yeah.
Tanya asked about, learnt versus learned. Sean and I have had so much fun with that because ever since I first met him, the first thing that I noticed that he used the word learnt a lot when he was communicating on his posts. And this was before I knew him very well, and I'm thinking, what school did he go to? Because that's not the way I was taught to do that. And so, I'm making a judgment on who Sean is because of the way he's using my language, as opposed to the fact that he's from England and they maybe use the same word a little bit differently, or maybe I wasn't even taught properly and I wasn't doing it right, and since he's an English major, he was totally correct and I was totally incorrect. But my judgment was going in there saying, okay, I'm not sure I like that. So every time he'd use the word learnt, it was like chalk on a blackboard to me. It was like, oh, stop that. Don't do that again, Sean. You're showing people something you shouldn't be showing them. And then, so anyway, when we were just...
Another conversation entirely, isn't it?
So anyway, we got to talking about it, the differences of learnt and learnt. So Sean, I'm going to ask you to explain to Tanya how you explain to me the differences of learnt and how you use it.
Do you know, well, thanks for that, because I've totally forgotten why I did the two. But I think from memory, if I have learned something, let's say I've been in a lesson, or I've picked up a book and I've gotten a new piece of information from that. That's something that I've learned, L-E-A-R-N-E-D. But if I have habitual behaviours, this is the way I look at it, that are hardwired into me, the way we would refer to that in the UK is that's an example of learnt behaviour. So there's a different context. So it's not learned behaviour, because that to us sounds wrong. It's learned, it's hardwired, it's instilled in us. Do you follow the difference? So they're both valid words in different contexts. And now I'm realizing that I probably need to look that up, because my definition is forever on this Hangout, and it's probably totally wrong. A complete bull, but that's the way I looked at it. Anyway.
I love
Rescue
that.
rescue me, Sandra, before I dig an even deeper hole for myself.
I think it just goes to prove when we're using some of these things, the perception that we have of one another comes from our written and from our nonverbal. And what we were talking about earlier is before I met Paulo for our first private video chat before the show, so we get to know each other, etc. I looked at him as being kind of a little stuffy business person because of the way he wrote. Now, I really liked your writings, and that's why I wanted for us to, talk about having an HOA. But I didn't see any humor in you whatsoever. And for me, humor is important in people because if I can't laugh about some things, then I tend not to want to be around it. I loved going to college and school and so forth, but boy, I had to bring some humor into it because otherwise it just was too much for me. But once I met you on camera, immediately I realized that Paulo has a great sense of humor. And I thought, wow, this is something I never would have picked up. And so the communication part of it is, it's not just the verbal, but it's also the part of the nonverbal, our body language, and then what we're doing in talking on camera. I mean, all of that makes a picture of who it is that we're going to engage with. And so when we're talking about engagement and how cultures and how language and communications affect that, I think we need to take into consideration the way we're making our judgments on other people and who we're excluding or including based on it, and then finding out maybe we should have excluded somebody we included and included somebody that we've excluded. And it's a good thing that we can change our circles around on Google+. So,
yeah, definitely.
And before I forget it, I want to ask everybody that's here on the show today watching, before you met us on camera or in real life, if you will, how did your opinion of us change from what you had thought of us just from the post that you read that we did or the engagement that we were doing on other social media platforms? It would be interesting for you to put that in the stream and share with other people. And we're not going to be offended because, quite honestly, that's what we're talking about, is how are we portraying ourselves in our communications, and are we doing it in a good way based on our social economics and our education, non-education, whatever? Are we doing it the way that we really want to, and are we considering other people? So, Paulo, what did you think of Sean? Now, you just met him for the first time today on camera. How did that change from what you had already seen of him?
Well, I have to say that I've already watched his Hangouts, 2 or 3 Hangouts, so I had the chance to appreciate the way how he can communicate in a very smooth way, very, very focused on topics, but at the same time very spontaneous and funny. So my first impression was is the same, remain the same.
And you'll be receiving that $100 note in the next 10 minutes, I think, Paulo.
No, but I'm looking forward to receiving it. Yeah, I'm very anxious to receive it. So can I give you my bank details?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can.
Please give me some money.
And when I met Sean, when we talked on camera after a show that we had met on, I realized what a great sense of humor he had. It was dry at first, and I love it when he actually shows that. I mean, he has that British way of staying very poised in his humor, unlike me, who can cry on the table in a moment. Screaming down and everything. But Sean has that great sense of humor that I love. I mean, it brings out so much, and that was one of the reasons that I had asked him to be a co-host with me on this show, was because he has that way. See?
Well, do you know, actually, I do have something to share on this, because I think it's really interesting that the temptation, and one of the things I love about social media is it does break down social cliche. And what I mean by that is, I remember the first hangout that I did of my own. I had a guest who was a friend of mine. So actually, in some ways, I was very, very comfortable for that first hangout. The second one, my second guest, was somebody I didn't really know, excuse me, other than on Twitter, and I was very formal and very deferential. But the thing is, and this is the curious thing about social stereotypes, I was formal and deferential because I was nervous and I'd not done a hangout before, not because I was a Brit. But the curious thing is some people might reach the conclusion, well, you know, he's formal and deferential because he's a Brit and that's the way they are. And what I love about this is in the set, but do you follow where I'm coming from? For me, what I love about Hangouts and what I love about all of the stuff that we do on social media is that you realise that people are people more than you know so well. And I might live in Louisiana, or I might live in Milan, or I might live in Denver, or I might live near London. But actually, the things that motivate and drive me are pretty similar. So I know that's almost contrary to the stuff we want to talk about targeting. That's kind of my rah, isn't the world lovely moment, if you like, of philosophical thinking. But just because of your point, Sandra, we have these cliches, and they're more often than not wrong, aren't they? And it's great to break them down. Now we move on to the marketing stuff,
Wow.
but I just had to say that.
I think you brought up a great point, and it was really what I was thinking about the show is that we have these preconceived ideas that are generally broken down because they're not accurate. And is it because of the way people are communicating to us, or is it because of the way we are perceiving it because of our experiences? And so when I said in the title, how are you communicating in social media? Maybe you're doing a fantastic job. Maybe the fault always lies on the listener or the person that's doing the recipient, because we're the ones that are passing the judgment. The person who's writing really isn't passing any judgment. They're just sitting there writing. But we're judging that. I mean, Paolo, what do you think? You're kind of quiet there and smiling.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, both of you have mentioned some interesting stuff regarding communication, because before talking to you, or before talking to me, you had some stereotypes about Italians, Americans, or British. So our first idea in mind before getting to know each other, before speaking or watching how we behave, is, okay, I know the Germans have no sense of humor. I know that Italians make lots of confusion. I know that, you know, some stereotypes that about the British, that they are seen from Italians as cold people, not calm, cold, very
Cold.
cold.
we all walk around with
stereotypes. But when if you as you get to know, as you have the chance to speak and to watch other people, that's the point. When you can listen and when you can understand and really have an idea about people. What lacks in social media is that we judge people just on short posts, just on tweets, just on few words, just how we react to maybe a conversation that started somebody else in Australia, and maybe somebody misunderstood and react wrongly, or with too much, you know, feelings, and maybe somebody else can, you know, misunderstand what we're going to do, and can just may just go back to stereotypes. That's you know, a danger. That's a danger when we have to deal with people on social media. There are so many stereotypes within Italy. We have stereotypes between people living in the north of Italy and people in the south. My father came from Rome in the 60s to Milan, and he suffered from racial discrimination. So outside houses, there were some notes saying, we do not let this house to people from the south. Actually, so that's, you know, before listening to him or understand how he behaves.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Forgive me, that was quite rude. I didn't mean to talk over you. We have a similar thing, except our north-south divide in the UK is the reverse of the Italian one.
Yeah.
So traditionally, the south is more affluent here, and the north is less so.
Yeah,
that's actually not true anymore. But that was the perception. But the reason I interrupted you was we're kind of leaning towards being real. And Sandra was making a point, and you've also made the point, Paolo, about stereotypes breaking down is a good thing, because actually we realize that cliche is what's holding us back. And then I just saw another comment by Francesca, if I can pull that up, which I thought was really good. Sandra, I'm just going to ping Francesca's comment on. Can you see that?
Yes, go ahead and read it, sir. You're on screen.
Okay, and I think it's really good. In communication, we cannot forget that we are not talking with robot, but with people with emotion. Yeah, we all know that to be the case, and yet do we sometimes forget it? And isn't it true that if a picture paints 1,000 words, emotion and congruence is far more effective than just dry words alone? So personally, I thought that was a really good point. So thank you very much, Francesca. That's very, very good.
I think that, we forget that so often, and that's the whole thing with communications, that we forget. We forget how people are taking things and what's going on. I'm going to bring up what Doug Phelps said. He said, formats like this have the most important concept in communication. Body language, humor, tone, facial expressions are often lost in strict written communications. And I totally agree, Doug. I think that it's really cool when we get out of ourselves and are willing to be in the social media realm like we are in real life. If I have a business in real life, you're going to see me.
Absolutely.
One way or another, you're probably going to meet me at some time. But when we get into social media here, sometimes we just stay behind that written word, and we don't want to go out. We don't want to take that chance, so to speak. Like somebody might find out who I'm really like. Well, in real life, we do know who you're like. Yeah. Sean's biting his mouth now. He knows what I'm thinking.
I do. Actually, one little indulgence. I've got to say this, and this is really great. We now, I'll tell you what, Sandra, we now often know what we each other are thinking, which is wonderful. But you may or may not have guessed, I was going to put this next comment on by Susan Anderson. But then if you're okay with it, I'd like to throw it over to Paolo to see what he thinks of Susan's comment. And I particularly like, we're not going to get the whole comment up, so I'll have to read the second bit. But Susan makes the point that one of the gifts of social media, a bit similar to Doug's point really, is the opportunity to know and interact with so many people. Now this is the bit that resonates with me. Susan says, for communication styles, I would just say go where your interest takes you. By the way, I can hear a lot of echo. Is anyone getting that, or is that a problem? Okay, I'll try and eliminate that if I can. For communication styles, I would just say go where your interest takes you. I may not be the humour type, but I'm a very joyous person. Once you go beneath the surface impressions, you have the opportunity to connect with what you seek. Thank goodness we're all different, all of which we'd all agree with. The bit that we were speaking about in the green room was, and I think we all agreed, often it's better to have more closely aligned followers than 20,000 followers that are, because you've been so generic, you appeal to a huge array of people. Let me ask you a question, Paolo. Would you agree with Susan that Doug, be yourself, be who you are, and connect with people that are aligned to your values, or are we saying politeness and genericism is a bit of a leading question? Is the way to go? And I think we'd all say not. So what's your steer on that, Paolo?
Well, I like Susan's post because she mentioned being ourselves. So what lacks sometimes in social media is just being ourselves. The fact that we write posts, when we write posts, when we tweet, we always should try to have in our mind our purpose. If we want to know more people, we try to get in touch with people, not to just get 1,000 or 5,000 followers. If we are brands, we should try to reach, as you mentioned, our target. So no matter if we have lots of followers who are not interested in what we're saying. So the question is, do we have something interesting to say? when we have something interesting to say, are we able to let us be understood? So I think these are the first questions we have to ask ourselves. As persons, when we use social media, whatever the purpose, or ourselves as brands. So, you know, we're using machines, we are using computers, but we are people. And so our personal touch is what is more appreciated by people and especially by customers. Talking back to social customer service. So it's strange, but as we go more and more on the web, as we use social tools, clients, people need a human touch. So as a client, I want to speak to Sean. I don't want to speak with, you know, Chrysler automobiles or Fiat automobiles. I want to speak to Sean because I spoke to Sean and I heard that he listens to me as a customer, understands what I need, and he tries hard to solve my problem or to give or to provide me with a good service. Or, you know, likewise, I want to speak to Sandra next time, and I will understand that Sandra will not pronounce the same words with the same tone of voice as you did. Otherwise, we come back to what Francesca said. You know, we're not robots.
Exactly right.
Wow. Okay, I want to speak to. Who do I want to speak to? I want to bring up what Loanne said, and that's right here where she says, in Hangouts, we pick up the warmth of a person, and I totally agree. I think that's one thing that we're looking for is somebody that we really can connect with. And sometimes only either a touch or a sound of someone is able to do that. Certainly good authors can do it. They can bring emotions out. But what we're talking about is the emotional side of the communication. And are we able to do that? We're talking sometimes. When I got to take this down, though, so that people can stop seeing it. I appreciate that, Loanne. That was really good. And I hope I said your name right. You'll let me know if I didn't right. We were talking earlier about going for a cup of coffee. And the guys were talking about the difference in Italy and in what I would do here. And they were saying that a latte hot was cow dough. And so when they were talking about that, immediately I'm thinking, cow, what does a cow have to do with coffee? And then dough, D-O-U-G-H, is that how much it's costing? I mean, I was so totally confused. I never heard much about what they said afterwards. And if they had written it out, I would have seen that it didn't come anything close to that. It's spelled, Paulo told me, C-A-L-D-O. So it's not C-O-W-D-O-U-G-H. But my little brain was going to cow dough. And then I'm thinking, okay, this is a clear indication of where the verbal would have been very confusing to me, and I would have been really, I wouldn't have even heard what the intent of the conversation was because I was trying to figure it out. Now, would I have gone to immediately Google to try to figure it out? And the answer is no, there's no time to do that. In the written word, when something is put up that I don't understand, like when Sean was talking about laughing. Okay. You say that differently in the UK, so explain to them how you say that.
Yeah, yes and no. Actually, it depends.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, well, we probably do because inherently I've got a different accent, but within a very small geography that we've got within the UK, there's different ways of saying it. So, you know, the archetypal gangster movie set in London. Are you laughing at me, Sandra? I'm going to have you. You laughing at me? You know, that is very different to the way I'd say it with my sort of neutral British accent versus elsewhere. But I suppose the point we're all making is we're talking about relatively flippant things, but if you translate that into a marketing campaign and you think that you've got a really clear message and it resonates well with your home audience and you literally translate it and take it over to another country, be prepared for them to look at it. And actually, we say another country could be the same country but a different demographic. If I take my marketing messages to a 17-year-old and I'm in my early 50s, I know I don't look it, of course, thank you. But if I were to do that, what a nightmare. Would I expect a 17-year-old to resonate with my marketing messages? So sorry, I'm losing myself down a black hole here, but what I'm saying is the laughter bit, you're right, those are flippant examples. And when you and I would laugh at the way we both thought about things when we first met, but no wonder that sometimes you get these massively successful campaigns because they resonate well, but you can get some bloody awful campaigns, can't you, where you've just missed a little emotional nuance and you've totally alienated your audience, and it's so hard to get them back. Paolo, you're sort of nodding very sagely here, and as a man that speaks 4 languages, that's worked with UK businesses, Italian businesses, Spanish businesses, where do you stand on that, the international marketing bit?
Well, international market, so different. We have so differences within Italy, languages, different dialects, different cultures. And as we move to foreign countries, we have boundaries. Although we are working and living in Europe, we have cultural boundaries. So the most important thing is when we want to go abroad with our business, is to learn as much as possible as local market, as local trends, as what people want and what people would not like, or the way you should present yourself to people. Because to make an example, if I go to Rome and I go to a business meeting, everybody will just stare at me because I have a northern accent when I speak. So I will not be considered a part of the pack,
Exactly.
Vice versa, it would be the same if somebody comes from Rome or from Naples with a very strong accent from Milan. In the office, everybody was, where are you from? Mars? So before getting accepted, you have to show that you are good at your work, that you are reliable, and you strive to do that. Likewise, you have to do the same when you have to business contacts with foreign countries. I had the chance when I worked for British insurance companies to deal with many foreign branches because we used to deal international motor claims. So car crashes between vehicles from Italy happen in Spain with the German third parties. So we had to deal different ways to deal damages, different ways to calculate, reimbursements, different percentage or solicitors' fees, and we had to deal and to provide legal details or to give evidence of what we were doing according to Italian law was legal. It was not just a way to fraud, the company or the branch, because foreign branches think with their own mind, with their common sense. So everything is not French, is not okay. Everything is not Italian, is not legal. Everything is not so. So that's very important. That you have to be humble. You have to be humble. You have to learn local markets before trying to get in touch, and because if you want to make business deal, you have to create empathy, and creating empathy with different part of UK, from north side to south side, or from different countries, from UK to Italy or vice versa, it takes a longer time. It takes more time. But you can do it. Just don't take for granted that it's the same like going to the same business meeting in Milan and saying the same funny things.
Do you know? My guess would be that we all probably get that here, because I would suspect that everybody who's watching this show, by definition, the fact they're on social media and the fact that people are watching the show means we're probably, as a group, all pretty adept. Whatever we do, I'm going to make a big generalization. You know, I know Tanya, for example, you're very much into your art and design. I don't know what Doug does, but we're all here because we've probably got that behavioural flexibility, I would suggest. But what I did like was I don't know if you've seen, Sandra, the exchange between Doug and Tanya, which I thought was pretty cool, about forgetting the cliches of B2B or B2C. Ultimately, it's always about person to person. I think that's a really good point. So I guess what you're saying there, Paolo, is that at the end of the day, you kind of got to be respectful of cultural nuances, but you also want to be good enough to connect with the core part of that person.
Yeah.
And so if you're a brand, if I'm selling jeans to 17-year-olds, I want to be speaking their language. I might adjust that for the jean buying 17-year-olds in Italy versus a jean buying 17-year-olds in the UK, but fundamentally there'll be a common language as well. So it is interesting.
I think that, as you mentioned now, that you have to find links. We usually mention, links on the web, but links there are so many verbal links that we can use to just, break the first barriers. The first link that we can use is just smiling.
Right.
When we get to know each other for the first time. And the second link is listen carefully without interrupting, which is very difficult for an Italian guy because we always interrupt ourselves in Italy. So, and then third, you can after listening to other people, you can understand how she or he communicates and what does he like or she likes. Yeah. Maybe you've got lots of information and you can understand, and you can also, while being yourself, not changing, not acting as a robot, but you have lots of ways to create links and to establish empathy. Of course, empathy is not something that is not maths. So sometimes you can establish empathy, sometimes you cannot. But you have the tools to try to do that.
I wonder. Do you mind me asking, Sandra? I wonder, because I don't know everybody in the audience, and I'd be interested, if it was relevant, in throwing it out there. Do the people in our audience have some sort of international dialogue? Is that part of the motivation for them coming into this show? And if they do, have they got any success stories or challenges that I'd kind of like to share with the three of us here? So it may not apply to everybody. I'm just curious. If everyone's got anything to share.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a good one, and we'll try to address a few of them. I just put up a little image here above my lower third that says relationships aren't built without trust. Because the blocks all fall down. And that's one of the things that we're talking about, the way we communicate, the way we understand the dialects, the way we understand the intent, the way we understand the culture, the way we understand the body language, the emotion that's going out there. I mean, there's so many things, because that's what builds a relationship. If we think in real life, the types of relationships that we have been built after a time. It doesn't happen over one hangout on air or one encounter on a street corner, although there's many songs that would disagree with that. They would say, the first sight, I just fell for you,
Yeah.
But the long-lasting type of things generally are built over time, because we learn to trust that this is what I'm going to find in you on a regular basis. And so I think that has to do with the way that we are communicating. One of the things also I want to say is, do either of you believe that there are cultural differences that change the way we perceive the story that can they always be overcome? Do you know what I'm saying? So if I'm talking to somebody in a different culture, like you said, you're not part of the pack, Paolo, if you go to a different part of your country, and somehow you have to build that. Is there a time when that just cannot be breached. You can't do that, and you know that ahead of time. So it's like, well, that's just not going to be my target audience, and I can't do that.
Well, I think it depends on single persons, because if somebody has got prejudice, so you can fight against prejudice. You can try to overcome them. But if I'm against everybody who's a foreigner or everybody who comes from Germany, and if I'm trying to talk to you to explain, our services, our business, our brand, you will not listen to me, because you have already decided not to listen to me. So I think this is just one of the cases of circumstances in which you know, no matter how hard you try to have, profitable interactions, online or offline. So that's my view.
I'm inclined to agree with Paolo, with the caveat that sometimes, I mean, we discussed this. I don't know if this has come up in our conversation just now, but we discussed it before the show, didn't we? That, again, it's this thing, isn't it? If we're really clear what our target audience is, inevitably some people who are non-targets will drop off. But I'd rather have that than having a totally. I'm not making a judgment, by the way, about people. Please don't think that. I'm not making a judgment about people at all. What I'm thinking is where I might use social media for a business tool, then if people drop off, then maybe people I'd want to buy a beer any day of the week or buy a wine I'd love to hang out with personally. So it might sound a bit selfish, but if they go, in the same way that if I drop off their stream but I don't serve them well, maybe it's not the loss that we fear it might be. So I don't know whether we touched on that. I'm conscious of the fact, Sandra, I probably pulled us away from where you wanted to go with this, so my apologies.
No, I think it's talking about communications, and that's part of what we do. And now I want you to see that the blocks are straight, because relationships are built on trust. So that you can see that. I'm going to bring up that Susan, her post, I just love this, Susan. It says, Susan Anderson, MSS, love the verbal links. Smile, listen, and understand.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, so smile, Paolo, for the camera.
Yeah.
Smile, Sean, for the camera. Real big.
Yeah.
You should be saying, Sean, listen, Sean, because that's what I'm about.
Well, these are thumbnails I'm going to use for later, guys. And then I do want to also say that Francisca, if I can find the one that she did, I want to do hers, because I thought this was very good. I think that many Italian brands need to listen to this video, guys. Woohoo! I'm all for that. Bring on the Italians and the Fiats, right? Yeah. Let them come.
Yeah.
They're coming, it said. Okay.
Yeah.
I think many Italian brands need to listen to this. They are just selling products without taking the people. Or I guess maybe I'm okay. Paolo.
Maybe she means just taking care about themselves, just themselves.
Yes, I agree.
And not the people. Okay.
Yeah, not about their customers.
That's very good. There's no two-way communications. And this is not bad English, Francesca. You have to understand this is good English, because you're getting a point across. You're making your point. I may not be listening in the right way, but thank goodness I had Paolo there, and had I been reading it on my own, I would have gotten the intent. And I think that's the other thing that's very important, is the intent. Even if the language barrier is there and things are not going the way that we want, as far as whether it be Italian, English, Portuguese, whatever, if the intent is there, then I probably am going to get it, unless my perception is so misguided by my judgment. Does that make sense?
What was the last bit?
I'm
teasing you, Sandra. I'm pulling your leg.
Oh, okay. It worked. Okay, Sean, what did you want to say about it? Go ahead.
Do you know, I kind of like Francesca's point, because I worked for a pharmaceutical company at one time. I was saying to both you and Paolo that was relatively small in the scheme of pharmaceutical companies in terms of size, but was an Italian company. And in terms of their UK operation, initially what they did was they bought a company within the UK and pulled their marketers into the UK. And we have some very good marketers in the UK, just as elsewhere, but they wanted to impose a global marketing structure. It didn't always translate into the UK culture. So some of their product campaigns didn't go very well at all. And yet they wanted, we're the parent company, we're the Italians, we own this. And I understand the pride. I do understand the pride. It's a bloody good company. I won't mention who they are, but it didn't work. And it was only when they empowered the British marketers to have an equal say, so that he could temper the global campaign into the local market, that it worked. Now that's a very long-winded way of saying that when we've got a structure in our heads, we also really need to make sure that it segues very well with our target audience. And again, whether it's the 17-year-old jean-buying skateboarder or whoever that might be. That's probably the longest sentence I've ever uttered. So if anyone got to the end of that with me, I'll be really amazed. Hopefully you did understand where I was going with that.
Oh, you still got my bank details for bank transfers.
I have actually. So
all right.
Hey, Sean, why don't you read what I put on the screen?
Yeah, nice comment, Doug. I like it. I've just scanned it very quickly, and I really like it. And I like your humour as well, Doug. So I used to do a business that crossed the pond to Europe. I learned. Thank you, Doug. Love that. How to communicate in the ways that I could be understood. Now the second bit. And understand. Very much like Stephen Covey, isn't it? Seek first to be understood, then to understand. Or is it the other way around? I've screwed that one up big time, haven't I? But I get what you're talking about. And clearly what Doug's done is he's had that experience of working across the pond, and he understands the dimensions of communication, which is what we're talking about. So that's brilliant. Thank you for that, Doug.
Well, the one thing that I think that has come across is that we're definitely communicating well here on the show, which I really love. And we're keeping some humor. Before this show, we were talking. I'm going to go into foreign waters here, and we're going to be delicate with it. So we were talking about how some words can be described as not so delicate in other areas.
Where are you going with this, Sandra? Because I'm getting very nervous.
And for instance, I might write something about how, we were in Colorado and it was very icy and I fell on, or somebody else fell on their fanny, and in England that would not be something that you would say at all. You would have had
I'm getting very nervous at this point.
Anybody who's in the audience will have to look that up and find out. Because we're not going to go into it. But that's a perfect example of how the language thing, to me, that would be a very normal thing to say. It would be cute, if you will, to say, wow, look what happened, or, do a video on it even and put a subtitle there like that, and it might actually even kind of go viral in the UK, possibly, from what you told me. It's and one that I wouldn't want to go viral. So it's an interesting thing. That would really, that could affect my personal brand, but, oops, I just noticed that I had Sean on camera, and he's sitting there pulling on his ear.
That's one of my nervous habits when we start talking about...
Well, you're not chewing on your earbuds, darn, I can't get
will be. You carry on with this conversation, I will.
But if we were a business and we did something like that, that could be really an issue.
But businesses have. I mean, I've lost it. I'm really annoyed with myself that I had this thing which gave 10, it was a list, I think, shared by Forbes, and it was the top 10 international marketing disasters in the last 5 years, and it was all about these little nuances. Nobody had sat down clearly and consciously not planned campaigns, but they'd just not given it that final level of attention. And they were disasters. These were serious budgets thrown at things that went horribly wrong. And they were about little words or little nuances or something that was incredibly funny in France that actually was incredibly dull. And didn't you tell a story which I thought was brilliant? Was it about Dexter or Bones?
Well, it was on
What was
Bones.
that?
It was
Bones. Bones.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a program on American TV that was just on this last week, and she's an anthropologist and a very dry humor. I mean, it's all about bones to her. And she was going to be the keynote speaker, and she was asking her husband, what should she do? And he said, well, you should tell a joke. And so she was telling this joke about how I'm probably going to get it all messed up, but the end of it is they went around because she said there was a cat in the trunk. And they went back to the trunk, and the person said, well, it's dead. And she said, it is now. And so they're even watching it and saying, I don't get what this is or anything. But Sean, you kind of got it.
Schrodinger's cat, isn't it?
Yeah, but the end of it was at the very end, she was doing her, they got interrupted, so she had to come back and do it. This is all getting messed up. But the end of it was she told that joke, even though her husband told her not to. It was a stupid joke. Nobody would laugh at it. But she recognized that her audience were all anthropologists, and they would laugh because they would understand it. So in the very beginning, she told the joke, and the audience went roaring in laughter. Her husband's sitting there saying, oh, no, don't do this, don't do it. And she did, and it was a success. So then right after that, she told her husband's joke because she wanted to make a point to him, and she told the joke, and now no one in the audience laughed, but he's laughing out loud hysterically, and he's looking like an idiot. And so that's a perfect example of the differences on how things are perceived and if it's a right audience. And I'm sure that Susan understands that, and everyone else in the audience, that if it's the right audience, then it's the right story, even though it may not mean the same thing to everybody else that's listening.
And to build on that point, with your lovely blocks to my left, to your right, as I'm looking at it, the bottom ones that speak about trust. When you do that, so in your story, had she then told several other jokes, the audience would continue to go with her. In the same way that if we've got the right target audience, we build up a sequence of messages to the right target audience, they continue to go with us, and you continue to build the trust in the bottom of your blocks because you're continuing that level of engagement. We all know that. I mean, I'm not being incredibly brilliant here, but do we always do it? I don't know. Paolo, you were about to say something, I think.
Yes, but Sandra mentioned a very good example about understanding the right moment to do the right thing, and that's a very important quality to understand what empathy is and what's the right time to say something and how to say it. Yeah. So that woman understood that was the right audience, the right place, and the right time, maybe during her keynote, to use a joke. Maybe she would not start with a joke if she was not very well known or famous. I still do some trainings for corporate blogs or social customer care, and if my small audience do not know me, I would never start with a joke because everybody would just think that I'm just here to play. And so I use maybe jokes during the whole day, maybe after a couple of hours, if I understand that their barriers, meanwhile, have fallen down towards myself. They're accepting what I'm saying, they're interacting with me, they're interested in what I'm saying, and they're asking me questions. And as the pressure goes lower, down, everybody is also willing to, say something that's maybe funny, although it's relevant to the topics.
Yeah,
but the very moment, understanding the very moment to use a joke is a great example of, using empathy and verbal links.
Yeah, and the empathy bit and the verbal links bit that came out from Sandra's story for me was I could tell the same joke to two very different audiences, and for one audience it'd be really funny. So I tell my golfing joke to an audience of people who've never played golf, and they'd be staring at me like, "What's that about?" But to the golfers, I tell the same joke, and they'd be falling over in the aisles. So for me, that's what I took out of your story as well, Sandra. I've just seen that Doug has just said, probably alluding to our earlier funny conversation. Doug's just said Sean is squirming. So yeah, so yeah, well, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just somewhere else. But,
Well,
but I love it.
when you guys were talking about that, I thought about it. When you go through a fast food place, and you'll get up to the window and they'll say, "Sorry about your wait." And one of the things that my husband says to a lot often is, "I'm sorry, I've been on a diet. I didn't know that it was still so bad." And the reaction from people is like either they laugh, which is only about 3% of the time. The rest of the time it's like, "Oh no, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to offend you." And the real, when you said, Paolo, they have to be ready for that humor. They really do, because then you can ruin their whole day.
I love. I'm going to use that. I like it. Next time I go through a drive-through, sorry about your weight. Well, I only weigh 160 pounds. What do you?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, well, guys, we are at the end, and so real quickly now, we've had a great time. I think it's just been so much fun learning and sharing and everything, and certainly I can hardly wait. I think I'll probably have to go out tonight and ask for a caldo latte.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we told everybody, but caldo means hot.
Yeah. A latte is just milk.
Yeah.
Oh no! So well, over here a latte's a latte. It's coffee. So okay over here.
Forget the fact you invented it, Paolo.
I'm responsible for that.
You know what I should do? I should say I would like a Paolo caldo latte. I'm going to rename it.
Yeah, great.
Paolo, since you're our guest, what would you like for people to remember about today?
Well, we talked about many things, but the one thing to let the audience, to give to the audience, is that we should not be afraid of breaking boundaries. So as we approach to people, no matter if we meet face to face or use social networks, we should never start with using our stereotypes of boundaries. Just meet the people, just listen to them, and then we have lots of time to judge or decide whether we get along well with them or not.
That's good. That's really good. Okay, Sean?
I'm gonna actually cheat a little bit. I'm gonna steal one of the comments because it sort of does it for me. If we're talking about marketing, we're talking about branding. You could have a situation where a lot of brands are very similar. I might choose to use hand creams, and there's not much difference between that hand cream there and that hand cream there. If I did use hand creams, which I don't, but the way they're marketed might be very different. And for the similar products, I might pay $2 for that one over there, and $100 for that one. So if that's true, Francesca's, again, brilliantly said it for me. So this is where I steal Francesca's comment. So I'm going to try and put it up. Bear in mind what I've just said, and then what Francesca says is brands sell more or less the same products. The difference is, so that why do I pay $100 versus $2? Well, it's about perception. And some of that perception, as Francesca says, is about customer care, customer service, and the human connection. And if you link that in with the power of emotion and connection, I think that's really powerful. So I have stolen Francesca's idea, because I thought that was really well put. But it fits with me, and I guess what we've learned, what I've learned from this is I get berated for using that word authenticity, and I'm going to use it again just because I love being berated. But it's about being authentic and connecting, isn't it? And if we can do that was. Shut up, Sean. You're taking
I do that because you have your screen share on for the comment.
Yeah, because I've actually had a brainstorm. I can't remember how to take it off. Let me Sandra, help. Phew. That was all deliberate. But thank you for that little cue there. But no, that's my lesson. So, what can we learn to really connect with people in a proper way? And by doing that, how does that then serve us, our personal brand and our business brands? Because I think we've all agreed it's all about that connection, whether it be with somebody between Italy and UK, Italy, France and UK, or wherever it is. People are people. So that was Sean Mahn's 103-minute summary, as usual.
Well, I'm going to steal one too, because I've already said all mine, but I think Tanya came up with and it's stealing it from Paulo, and that is verbal links. We need to be very cognizant of the verbal links that we're building between one another, and I think that's really a great way to put it. What we are communicating is building, and is building blocks, building links. We're building trust through all of that, and we're building very good relationships if we want to. It all comes down to desire and what our intent is. So, with that being said, everybody, it was great having you here. I'm going to play my song, okay? I'm not going to play now. And Sean's going to sing, and we're going to say goodbye. Thank you for coming. Okay, please follow.
All right, sorry, I've got a challenge. We're going to sing in Italian, aren't we, Paola?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. But before we do that, Paolo, I'm going to encourage everyone to follow anybody that's been here at the show today that you've seen in comments that you are not already following, and also all of us here on the panel, Paolo, Sean, and myself. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels, and I have to tell you, there's a couple really funny ones on my channel of Sean. You might want to look up what happens when there is no backup plan.
That's a classic. That is a classic.
I'm telling you, Francesca, if you want to see a good sense of humor, that's a good video to watch. So.
we're not going to make you sing, Paolo. Don't worry.
I watched it. I already watched it, Sean.
Okay, well then,
Yeah.
Paolo, you know what? I'm going to play the song, and you go ahead and sing it in Italian as we go out.
No, I have no words. I have no translation.
Okay, well, you mouth it then as I play it. How's that?
Italian is the only language I'm not able to speak.
Okay, Sean, you get ready to sing as soon as I'm finished, okay?
Very well. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Google Plus for you and me. Hey!
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Have a good rest of the day.
Take care, guys.